Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hello and welcome to the 28th episode of the Extreme Sports Performance Podcast. My name is Ryan Blake. I'm the founder and CEO of Extreme Sports Performance. In this episode, I'm speaking to Stu Aimer. Stu is owner of Tribe Performance in Richmond, London, and also strength and conditioning coach for the Jamaica Sevens rugby team. In this question, I'll be asking him what I ask all my guests: who he is, what he does, where's he come from, what's he done along the way, what are the key moments from his career, what are his top areas of interest, what are the most valuable things he's learnt, who are his top influences, what are his top resources for information, what are his top sports performance exercises and or drills, what are his top pieces of advice in life, exercise and or sport, and finally, where can people find him? We freestyle a lot in between questions. This was recorded in week 5 or 6 of lockdown, which I think had got to us and we started talking about lots of random stuff. But it was all good though. Hope you enjoy listening to it. Here we go. Stuart, welcome to the Extreme Sports Performance Podcast. Thanks for coming on. Could you start by telling everyone who you are and what you do?
Cool, Ryan. Thanks for having me on. It's when you gave me that question, who are you? I think that probably took the longest time to work out exactly who I was. I know what I do, and I think I always used to tell people how much that statement of who are you amongst guys is always quite an interesting one, because sometimes it can be a case of you put a whole bunch of guys together in a room and they all drift into different compartments of bankers, accountants, and they identify themselves of what they do. But then I gave it a good thought, and I thought to myself, you know what, actually, it makes sense. To me, it's mind, body, and soul is who I am. And in the spiritual realm, of course, that's a much deeper question. And, we can go like it's a whole deep debate and everyone has different philosophies. But I think I get my reflection from my maker. I think being a Christian follower, it's an important part of my being. For other people, it's different things. I think in the physical realm, I'm the ginger guy with a beard, that pretty much loves his cricket, although I never coach it. I think that's probably the one thing I don't do, I guess, because I love cricket too much. So I think if there was something in the body realm, I think some people will probably identify me as a Sean Pollock or thereabouts, as a look. But yeah, I used to be quick over 400 meters. I used to love sport. In my mind realm, I think that one for me is always a case of reinventing myself, involving thought processes. Obviously being a family guy, dad of 2 older kids and a brand new born baby. So for me, that's kind of who I am in that realm. What do I do? Sometimes I think I do too much, and I'm trying to minimize it. But I've been an S&C coach. You're always looking for a door, an opportunity, and I think sometimes that can be my downfall as well. But at the moment, I run Tribe Performance. It's based in Richmond, in a squash court. I also do a bit of S&C for Grasshoppers, which is a lower league rugby club, which I totally adore. Part-time, lecturer with obviously the Brendan Chaplin. That's how I met you, Ryan. By the way, that was a great course when we did it. How methodical it was. It was no mistakes. I loved it. That was absolutely brilliant. I aspired to that, how organized you were. At the moment, I'm now had to take a 2-year gap, so I'm back on to doing my master's in strength conditioning at St Mary's, finishing that one up. Looking forward to that, and then finally, my favorite job out of the lot is the Jamaican Sevens, which I, cherish and don't take lightly at all. So as a whole, that's kind of like who I am, what I do. There's probably bits missing there some way, but I think on a whole, that's who Stu is. Some people call me Coach Stu or whatever. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the insights there, mate. That's great. It's good to get a nice wide background on the guests. Everyone's so different. So I really enjoy asking that first question. So with regards to tribe performance, could you just give us a bit more of an insight as to what that is and what it consists of and who you work with mainly?
So tribe performance, I kind of branded it as a way that I'd started training general population, and I'll even as an
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
ICT coach, I love training general population. I think it's brilliant. I think it teaches a lot about interaction with other humans. I think that's one thing I absolutely love. But trial performance has kind of started at TW9 Fitness, and then it kind of evolved and always based in Richmond. But I work with general pop. I do variety of different weekend warriors across the board. From distance runners to sprinters. I also use the trial performance as a testing facility. So we do counter movement jumps on 4 decks, obviously the timing gates, and I keep the sort of testing protocols pretty simple with that. So that's been going for about 2 years. It's, it always started off as I was going to do a sort of amazing sort of classes and all the rest and go down that road. But I realized that actually it was something quite unique to have a facility that was quite one-to-one in a rather huge space. So I capitalized on that and monetized that, as a way of giving that service and that special treatment to those people that are looking for something like that. And I also understood that it wasn't going to be a case that all the athletes were going to afford that. But also when they did come in, I could train 2 or 3 at a time. So that could sort of made it a more worthwhile for them. Trial performance also, I kind of branded that as training some of the, Jamaican girls team, for example, that I also take care of. But, I'd kind of use an application and train people online with that as well. And that's been quite rewarding as well. So yeah, it kind of evolved. Before you knew it, I had one squat rack that was a cheap eBay jobby, and next minute one person came in, had extra money. Before you know it, now I walk in and I look at it and go, geez, where did this all come from? So London Scottish amateur team, they kind of use my space from time to time. So when they get the chance to. And apparently there's some chats about a weightlifting team coming to use my facility. So, not something that I constantly do, but that is something that it's great to have a different group of people coming into trial performance and seeing where that may go and what sort of people I might meet,
Awesome. And that's based in just outside of London in Richmond, yeah?
Yeah, right opposite the London Scottish Richmond rugby club.
Yeah.
So from where I am, it's in the squash court. There's 5 squash courts, so I've just kind of hijacked one. And it's it's different flooring system. Obviously, there's different ways of the training that happens. We can do it outside and inside, but it's just such a lovely location.
Yeah.
I think the coffee shops here is probably what makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, there's some great ones in Richmond, that's for sure. Yeah, I know that very well. Well, that sounds really cool. I'll make sure everything we discuss throughout this show, I'll put all of the links in the show notes at the end. So if people are interested in checking out more,
I appreciate it, man.
they can just click on them and have a look for themselves.
Yeah.
So second thing then, masters in strength and conditioning. How does that fit around your lifestyle as an SFC coach, and how does that affect your day-to-day routine as a dad as well?
Oh man, that is the question. That's the $1 million question right there. Why and how do I do it? I have no idea. But one thing I do realize is that time management is absolutely key. Yeah. I've never been a time management guy at all. If you knew me when I was younger, I was the guy that left everything at the last minute. And sometimes I wonder, how do I get these projects done? How do I get them? Or how do I play with my kids? How do I play with my son? Now I've got my daughter, my son Nathan, my daughter Michaela, and Anastasia, the 2-month-old. And then still, do the online strength conditioning course at St. Mary's. It's like if I've got an hour between clients, I'm not sitting around and, going for that coffee. Trust me, it's a coffee and back. And then I'm reading at least 2-3 papers a day, researching very specific topics. Sometimes I go too deep on the topic and then I get lost and I don't have anyone around me as stuff to support me with that. And then I've got to have time for the wife as well. So, like when you add it up, I think it's a case of, I've done it for a couple of years. I did this with Loughborough University as well when I was at the college. And again, same thing, it was all online. You just get it done. If you've got that mission to get it done, you'll end up, finding a way because you're passionate about it. If you weren't passionate about it, you'd really struggle. And you'd see it as a chore. But because, I'll talk to my wife and I'll talk strength conditioning. And it's like, oh, sorry, I'll how's the kids? I found this great thing. You must see this metric. It's brilliant. I think I've solved the puzzle. No, I haven't. But in that moment, I did. And in my world, if I asked anyone else, I did solve the puzzle. And when you talk to other professionals, they realize, no, that's been around for years. You've just only known that now. Oh, shame, But that's okay. That's part of the journey.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Learning for me, but I don't ever neglect my kids. So, if my son says I want to play cricket, trust me, I'm out there playing cricket with him. Before you know it, I've worn him out and then I'm back to doing my work again, So I somehow make a life balance, and there's no I don't have a formula, it's just passion. I think that to me is key.
I get that. I think everyone, no matter what they do in life, is busy, and you just have to make it work. Like I had a really interesting conversation with Pete Atkinson, who used to be the head of performance for Italy Rugby. He's now going to be the head of performance for Wasps whenever the season starts back up. But he's a friendly colleague I've known for a long time, working at the English Institute of Sport in Bisham Abbey and with England cricket as well. And he said the most important thing he's ever learned was, because I caught up with him, I hadn't seen him for a long time, but I caught up with him in Treviso middle of last year, and he just had his second kid. And he said, look, the most important thing I've realised since I last saw you is you just work it out. Whatever it is that needs to be done, whether it's in performance with athletes or whether it's with your family, and being so busy or taking on extra study or whatever it is, you just work it out and you get it done. So I completely understand what you mean by that.
Also, a support of your family as well. I think, that wouldn't have happened if my wife was, say, for example, not very supportive, then I think I would be more struggling through that. And I think you're right. How much times in the day we actually waste, I think is probably quite a lot, right? So if you had to wake up that hour earlier, do what you need to do. If you did stuff in the morning and you don't train at 4:00, you train early in the morning, and you're still getting your training in, you still got your kids finish school at 3. You've already done your research. You're not now starting to do your work, some of the evening times, half an hour here, half an hour there, half an hour on your phone when you're at the coffee shop. Boy, I think I learned more like that.
I've found that, and this is a question I want to come on to ask you a bit more about in a minute. I've found during lockdown that I've probably ended up doing more in a day than I would do if we weren't in it. The routine I had before was a lot different to the routine that I've got now. And if I am well energized and feeling productive, I can get so much more done. And I think a lot of that's to do with not actually having to be in a specific place.
Yes.
It's having to be in it's having to stay in one place. It's giving me so much more time, because that commuting time or traveling time to wherever I need to be before, it's not necessary anymore. It's great. But what I'm also finding is, because I'm doing more in a day, like, work, studying, reading, training, I'm actually a lot more tired at the end of it. Like, it's Friday today, and I'm absolutely knackered. I'm never usually as tired by Friday, but now I look back on the week, and there's been some long days of work and study and some hard training sessions, and I'm thinking, well, normally I wouldn't really have time to do all this, so it kind of makes sense.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I do. Like coming to work 40 minutes, bang, that's gone.
Yeah.
And I know how romantic that sounds. Like, oh yeah, I'll travel 40 minutes. I'm going to get this clip, and I'm going to listen to this, and I'm going to study through the radio. Remember all that sort of concept? It doesn't happen. You just slog your way to work, slog your way back, and it's a waste of time. And then stepping out around London, I think it's quite a challenge. Everywhere it's going to be 20 minutes. So, for me, I've noticed that it'd be a chore that I'd have to do at home. I'll be like, gosh, that only took 5 minutes. I swear that would have taken longer. It would have, because you would have had to drive home to then do the chore. So that's why the chore felt so long. I mean, my son and I were pulling out a tree, tearing down the shed like every other household in the lockdown. I was starting to build myself a barbecue, for those that are South Africans, a braai space with my son as a place. We fixed the pool. I decked out the gym. We had this gym that was already there before the lockdown. Behind that, I cleaned it all up. I got so bored, I even cleaned up next door neighbor's junk. Hired a 12-yard skip and a 10-yard skip and filled it to the rim, cut the lawn. We were doing everything. And that took a week.
Yeah.
That would have taken years.
Yeah.
There's no way. It's like the romantic idea of like, over the weekend, I'll just do this and this, and felt like I did a lot. In this 1 week, I could not believe the accomplishment level that was achieved. And of course, the wife was very happy, and it makes me think who actually, when it comes to this particular bug, as females have definitely won that one in terms of all the guys doing housework, right? So, but even that being said, I built a woodwork bench for my son. Like, I would never build a woodwork bench. I'd be something like, oh, son, one day as your father, I'd love to spend time and we'll teach you woodwork. I built him a bench out of a bit of here and a bit of there. It looks like a beautiful bench. We painted it white. Got him a vase, taught him some woodwork, teaching my daughter, although sadly, I don't teach her sewing, the wife does, but she's learning stuff that maybe we ask ourselves, why are we living in London? Why aren't we living in the countryside? It's exactly the same, and it beggars the choice of like, but this is where the vibe is. This is where the work is. And I think with today's age, after this, everything going online, I think it'll be a lot more people might be migrating in a different direction. Maybe not everyone's going to be migrating to the city, certain companies might say, well, you can do that from home. But I just also pray that, training is not always going to be conducted by Zoom. I don't know if you've experienced that. I don't know if you've been doing that. It's not fun. It's not interactive, You're not like in the space in the moment.
I think the lockdown's thrown like positive and negatives at me personally, as I'm sure it has for other people. And the positive side of things are it's if as I said before, if you're focused, organised, and energised, ready to go, you can get a lot of stuff done in a day that you probably wouldn't normally get done if you had to commute or travel somewhere like you normally do. But there are, quite other few negatives. Like I found like mental health's taken a bit of a dip. It's very difficult to be isolated to one place for so long. Probably the longest time I've ever had to stay in one place that I can remember, to be honest. That's difficult. And again, you can tire yourself out without realising it. Like as you're saying, sorting out the garden, building the gym, and sorting out the barbecue and stuff. Like you just work like a robot because there's not really a time scale to have to adhere to. So you can overcook yourself or over rev it slightly. But coming back to your point about training, it's a strange one because probably about 50% of my time usually is spent in person coaching, like multi-sport athletes, various different levels, and 50% of it is spent online coaching prior to lockdown for athletes and clients in different countries. So for them, it's not really anything different. But for the in-person guys, it is, and it's something that they've just had to get used to. But you can tell when you speak to them, like they're just fed up. And you can be as, I suppose, entertaining as you want, but it gets to a point where it is just another Zoom training session. And it's getting the work done, but it's just nowhere near the same as it is.
Nowhere near the same.
Or in a performance environment, is it, or on a pitch?
Totally.
It's hard. And I think as a coach, you need to find new ways of trying to keep their attention and to keep motivation. But also as an athlete, I think they require to do some extra work too, because they're the ones that you're trying to support at the end of the day. So it has to, a bit more of an inner drive, I think, has to come from them as well, to just to understand and appreciate the situation we're all in, but also accept the fact it's not going to change anytime soon.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting.
That makes sense?
It does. Because for me, with the mental health side, I was just having this discussion earlier with an athlete that just came in, and I was just saying, first of all, you've got to be comfortable with yourself, and that was quite a challenge. And I said, well, for me, like mental health in the spiritual realm, for me, is kind of a close tie. For me, it's a case of if it's the tension, and it's kind of a big debate for me. I have a lot of my personal views on that. I find that people that are walking well with their makers tend to do don't tend to have so much mental health problems. It's not about them. It's about, Christ as such. And when they take the focus off themselves, I find that it does sort of self-resolve itself. For me, that's a different entity, and I have my own personal experiences with that. Certainly as a young child, I coming from South Africa, mother passing away at 10 years old.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Having to upkeep myself quite quickly. There was definitely many, and I found that the closer walk I had, the better I was. When I wasn't walking close to my maker, it ended up being a case of I was going through a lot of dips and troughs. So then it quickly identified for me as growing up to being a man, it's like, right, I see where I need to get my identity from. I need to understand that although I'm doing something in life, the focus shouldn't just be on me and getting the glory for it. So I think for that side, we're having that discussion. And for me, it's an interesting one. It's something that no one really wants to pick up on that side. Because like I said in the beginning, mind, body, and soul, right? So if one of them is unaligned, well, guess what? It's pretty much the other one too. But that's a big debate, isn't it? It's a big discussion, that one. And of course, it can be quite upsetting in certain realms when you're talking about that. But one thing I have found about the lockdown, though, talking about the athletes is, especially with the Jamaican Sevens players, is the fact that I've used this opportunity to work on things that we would not have worked on had they been access to a gym. For example, if we program something, Stu, we've got a squat rack, I can do 100 kg squats. And I, as an S&T coach, would have been, great, he's going to get stronger. But then, because that's the way we program, that's the way we think, he's got the facility, he's going to be doing it anyway. But now he's been snatched that facility, he doesn't have it. And now we work on pistol squats. And now we find that they can't quite do it. So, when you jump as an S&T coach into a team, you kind of pick up from where they were and you keep going. And this opportunity is allowed for regression to come all the way back and go, what I call secondary assessments. How's your hamstring capacity? How's your pistol squats? How's the mobility and stability of your movements? And I found a lot of these guys have been working. I mean, they were very upset with me once they realized, what is a pistol squat? I can't do this, Stu. This isn't an exercise. And it's made me realize how good this time being has been for them. I can't wait for them to get under the squat rack now. And when they start becoming stronger for their sport, because we worked on simple things just like, landing mechanics and, wall drills. And, we've gone back a few steps. And to me, it's a case of making them realize that these are the basics. They will never change. And when it goes off into, training back in the gym, there's a sense of appreciation as well that might occur. My only concern going back into the gym environment is that the first month, everyone's going to go for it. The second month, a lot less people are going to be. Like you've ever seen December and January, I feel that that's going to happen. We're going to be a new December and a new January is going to occur. The physios are going to be busy. They're going to be, and I think the onus right there is the PTs, the S&C PTs, or people that train people. I think I like to say that word because sometimes titles, where do they really go? If you're training people in the gym and you're not busy, now's the time to help. Because you're going to guarantee there's going to be guys going, well, lockdown's over. I used to lift 100 kgs. I'm back on it. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to everyone, but there are going to be people. I'd be more impressed with people coming back in the gym doing a pistol squat or a box. I'll be like, you're on a journey. I want to come talk to you. You must be training with someone. Is Ryan training you? Bet he is, because that's progression. The sad thing is to see S&C coaches or trainers going in there and just progressing too quick and getting too excited on all the different movements that people have, come to discover in the gym. And but let's say, a lot of people have been taking on a lot of endurance sports. Maybe there'll be less people on the treadmills, because guess what? You can run outside now. So if you can run outside, so which gym are you going to? It could be your next question as well, So maybe you'll be spending more time, doing different weight training that you've discovered, body weight training. So you might then become strong enough to do just light dumbbells, for example, because you've been doing body weight training for a while. So there's this, progression, regression that might occur. And the people that have online training, I also don't think online training is just the Zoom. The online training is the back support. It's the program support behind it. it's the Texas late at night where it's like, I just can't do it. Ryan, is there another exercise I can do? It's really sore. Oh, let me, where's it sore? You know, and so on. You'd have this discussion with your athlete. That's the online training bit. So for me, that's the important part, you know, because distantly I train the Jamaican sevens. You know, we only meet every now and again on a Sunday, but distantly we're constantly in contact. I watch them on their Instagram, stalking them every few seconds I possibly can. It tells me more what's going on. But, you know, we've been spending a lot of time using an app, you know, Train Aerobic, which I find affordable, cheap, gets the job done, gives a video description, brilliant, you know. And then it's about responding to those questions and texts about different ways of approaching it. And I've always said, you know, being adaptable, guys, you know, be creative in your training, you know, as well as, you know, executing what you can, you know. So that's always been an inspiration. And since when I was working for Ghana, I never got more inspired by people that have had nothing that do end up training much more improved technique because their emphasis isn't on the fancy equipment. So they were using brakes from cars as weights. But it, you know, and the squat rack's not even and the floor's not even. Yet when you watch him squat, it's absolutely perfect. And you're like, how, why, when, what are we doing, you know? When you look at country setups or the fastest athletes in the world, they tend to not all have everything. And it always made, and when I started my S&C journey, I always started off at a rugby club, King's Rugby Club, you know, with a friend of mine called Boris. And from that, we got creative. We didn't have anything, you know, and I think that creativity I'm so grateful for, you know, and it steered me a good stead throughout because, you know, textbooks tell you one thing, but the textbooks never tell you who you're training in front of you. So for me, there are certain things in textbooks that are great. Some things, you know, it works. Other times, who you've got in front of you is completely different and might not apply. So you've got to be, for me, that creative. Use lots of common sense, which during this time, it's certainly a stretch to people's common sense imagination. Trying to be 2 meters apart. And I've invented a new game, by the way, 2 meters apart tag rugby. It's a long pole with a tennis ball at the end. And my son was playing that in the park, throwing sticks at another boy, and they're playing, you know, dodge me. And I'm like, that's rugby. Well, what else? How more confusing do you want to do by just being constraint-based training, teaching games for understanding, all these fantastic things, and it's just a bloody stick. So then it got me thinking, well, put a stick and a ball on, and if I touch you with a ball, it's that famous kid game called It. Guess what? They probably be, you know, running around, touching each other, like getting that hit on the back. So we had to make different rules, like you can only hit the back. The problem was that my son tried to reach for me and got me clipped on the hamstring. And I was like, yeah, maybe it's not for kids. Maybe I need to reinvent this, you know.
Sure.
But still, I think I've seen more kids climb trees.
Yeah.
You know, the playgrounds are closed. Great. Like, good on. Like, I can't believe you want to climb a tree. Let me show you. No, you know how to climb a tree. I never taught you how to climb a tree. It's instinctive. So the laziness of play gyms, although they're good, gosh, the kids in the park are so much more friendly with each other. You know, I haven't heard any crying of children. Like, you haven't heard, you know, siblings, you know, moaning at each other, playing in the park together, you know, brother and sister or sister, brother, you know. So I think there's been a lot more good things. Likewise, you know, I'm always saddened by the news, by the results of certain, you know, results coming out about, you know, such and such today has been so many passed away. You know, those are never results you want to see in any condition. But on the other side, I look at, you know, how everything's repaired. I mean, here I'm sitting outside Richmond and London Scottish home ground, and the rugby ground is absolutely in prime condition. I bet you the grass has actually had a chance to grow. So, on that side, on the field side, maybe they're going to play on better fields, maybe, I must admit, I'm looking at this going, I kind of like where we are now with the lockdown.
Yeah.
I don't really want everything to open up because it's just right now. Bit of social interaction, 2 meters apart, we can all get on. I don't know if I would be quite ready if everyone came back into Richmond, right? There'd be no space to walk.
It's going to be, it's going to be strange when things do start to get back to normal. I think
nuts. Yeah.
There's, as I said before, negatives and positives about this whole kind of epidemic, for everybody in different capacities. But I think you just have to do what you can do when you can do it. I've been saying to a lot of people lately, just been doing what's possible, when's possible, as well as.
That's good. Yeah.
You got 3 choices. You can do less, you can do more, or you can do the right amount, and that's always difficult to work out what that is. But usually, if you do less, you're gonna be worse off. And usually, if you do more, you'll probably.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Be fine to start with, but then you end up being worse off in the long run. But doing the right amount is ultimately what we're trying to strive for all the time, especially with
optimal performance.
But, you never. It's that relentless pursuit of the right balance, isn't it? But just coming back to a point you made, Stu, about opportunities to do other things or new things or things that you wouldn't usually have done. I think that's a key thing I really have noticed, because obviously a lot of clients and athletes I work with, my company works with, they have minimal equipment, and as I'm sure your players do, and you have to start thinking outside the box a bit more, working on different elements that you probably wouldn't have done in the past, and start to get creative. And quite a lot of people that I've spoke to this week have said there's a lot of opportunities during negative time periods, whether that's like an athlete being injured. We've discussed this in the past, that injuries are opportunities to work on other things. Same with lockdown. Lockdown's an opportunity, isn't it? It's an opportunity to work on other things that you wouldn't have done before, or you might not have had time to prioritise, or you hadn't considered before. So you just have to think about what's important and do what's possible. And that's what I kept saying to lots of people I've spoke to in the last couple of weeks. And
I think also athletes have had the opportunity to fully recover as well.
Well, this is it. So that's the other thing I was going to say, was a lot of my guys who I'm coaching online are doing more than I've set them. And that's ultimately because they've got more time to recover, and they've got more time to sleep. They don't have to get up as early.
That's true.
They're piling in the calories because they're just there ready for them to eat, like at the time they want to eat them. They don't have to travel to get food or wait to get food. So like it's kind of almost like it's almost like the perfect storm, because you sleep more, you can eat more, you've got more time to do more training and more time to do more recovery. But ultimately, that increase in volume in a shorter period of time, as we know, can spell disaster. So it's just trying to educate them on doing the right things in the right order, in the right amount, and not trying to be a hero and do things too much too soon.
That's so true. I mean, everyone's an elite athlete during lockdown.
Yeah.
Because guess what? You eat, sleep, and train. Like, what else did you think elite athletes do, Yeah. what do you think those footballers do? Or they wake up in the morning, they have their food, it gets provided for, they do their training, maybe gym sesh, and then they're off to have lunch, and then they come back and do some ball skills. Then they go off home, maybe social interaction, coffee here, coffee there, go to sleep, appropriate time. Guess what? You do it tomorrow morning. And so, the people who are not suffering are the military guys, the people that can, the hurry up and wait culture of, having to be self-disciplined. I think that's a quality that, some athletes have more, some don't. And I don't know where that's kind of innate from when you're raising up, then more than it is that you can be trained into you. I think they can create a lot of accountability. And I'd have appreciated that the guys, that I train, they kind of train in groups of 3, but at 2 meters apart. So on a field, so it doesn't really affect them. But you are right. It's, I'm kind of excited to see after the lockdown now more than anything else. Like I've seen 2-3 months of this now, or a month or whatever. And now I want to see the other side of the coin. The amounts of webinars on rehab has been through the roof.
Yeah, no.
It's like, oh, my goodness me, like I feel like I'm a rehab specialist, Guess what?
There's great resources out there at the moment.
Yeah.
A lot of really good free content. And I've
too much.
I've been trying
Love it.
a lot of it out myself, but there's only a certain amount that you can create and also watch on top of everything else. So yeah, I've just been trying to pick and choose the stuff that really stands out to me, but I kind of want to read it and watch it all, but
it's
just
hard. What do
Yeah.
you think the next sort of level of injuries that are going to come after lockdown? If we wanted to call it the lockdown injuries, what would they be? For me, it's neck, groin, and ankles. You know what I mean? Because people have been jogging. It's groin because no one's done lateral movements, and it's neck in my sport because you haven't done any collision. So it's like, have you been training those? And you haven't been running fast, so it's going to be hamstring next. Like it's like I've counted 4, and like we'll just patch the rest. But those 4, please don't get injured.
Sure.
So for me, that's kind of what I've been working on the guys is those 4 things that we might never have had an opportunity if you were going to a gym and only staying in one plane, and then expecting to have those adaptations on the field, which would then be question is like, well, where do you train that then? Where's the halfway house between gym and field? So yeah, it's man, I can't wait.
It's going to be an interesting return. I think I was speaking to a couple of sports psychologists last week, and we were discussing like what the biggest risks are for particularly young athletes returning to sport, and they think that obviously motivation should be fine.
Fine.
People who are over motivated or over aroused because they're so ready to get back involved, which then could possibly lead to them going in too hard and too fast. So that there's a big
correct
over arousal / injury risk. And the other area is kind of the same injury, but from a different cause, which is going to be confidence, because they've not played or trained competitively for so long. If their confidence is low, then they might go into what they would go into a collision normally full on. They might be a bit less committed, and therefore they might also have a bad outcome. So that was quite interesting. But I think people are just going to be a product of how much work they've got done. Those who've got a good amount done or enough done will be fine, but those who haven't got enough done are probably going to struggle. And
the right sort of training for their sport.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to have seen my rugby forward so fit, to be honest.
They're all going to be 10K, the aerobic capacity. You're going straight into sprint training day one. Exactly. Why are we doing that, coach? Because guess what? You've only been running with your calves for 10Ks.
Yeah. Exactly. So
but it's interesting what you say there, because you've got like category 1, super keen guy, category 2, sort of keen, it sounds like it needs an S&C graph going here with some sort of, X and Y axis here, 4 categories: motivated, sort of motivated, needs motivation, unmotivated, and all the sort of realms of a return to play with other people, should we call it? And those other people, could you imagine them on the first training session? I'm contemplating on the first rugby training session, whether it be with Jamaica, whether it be with Grasshoppers, just stand and talk to each other, like just from a distance, just say hi. Because once they've got that out of their system, what was the old thing they used to do in the past when there used to be rugby training? They used to go run around the lap of the pitch. That used to be the old sort of warm-up protocol. And what's interesting is that was more used for talk it out, and when you come back, we can start. And I can see that in kids as well. A great way to sort of calm them down before actually train them and such.
It's definitely going to be like that cohesion and team dynamic aspect is going to be what I think's missed a lot by many younger athletes, and I think
it's what they feed off.
Well, that's the only reason. It's the reason they love doing it, isn't it? Really, one of the main reasons. Like that's going to be a key thing to just get right first. Because once they've got that out the way, as you said, once they've got it out of their system, and elite athletes too, then their focus is going to be better. If you come back in a bit too hard, fast and serious, and they've not, seen each other for so long, I think if there's a risk they could lose their focus, and then stuff can start going ping and pop, which you don't want.
That's right. Yeah.
Stu, I'm going to go into a couple of quick fire questions, but more specific about S&C, because I've promised you I'd keep you through an hour max.
No worries.
Go over that. Not like we're short of time at the moment.
Plenty of time. Like, what is time? What day is it, Ryan? I don't even know.
But it got probably like the third week of lockdown, and I literally started not knowing what the day was. I didn't even need to. It's strange, isn't it? How you just
I love it.
Just to start not to care. So I'm not going to ask all the questions that I'd usually ask, because I think we've talked about some pretty cool stuff already, and that's probably one of the longest podcasts, like intro /
oh no!
Done. It's great.
Yeah, you're gonna edit this. I should have had a coffee. I would have gone for 3 hours. No,
I told you I shouldn't have had that. Exactly. I told you I shouldn't have that second coffee. So, what would you say that as an S&C coach, you've got like the 3 key moments have been from your career up to date?
3 sort of key areas. What is from the career perspective?
Yeah. So
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Are there things that you don't have to necessarily give 3? But what would you say are the key moments from your career from when you started up till now?
I think one of them for me was when I was one of the main ones when I was Ghana national team, and I was training them. We arrived at Ghana, trained them in this stadium, and started to realize that they don't have much, but they have passion, they have desire. That struck me quite a lot, because I realized how lucky we were in the UK with all the bits and pieces of equipment in life. That was definitely one of the highlights. The other one is when we played against Jamaica versus Canada in the qualifiers 2019, where we came second, and we missed our chance to go to the Olympic qualifiers. That was, again, building up towards that was quite a defining moment. Also, one of the funniest things is working with Tristan when SimSpark came and did a review about the course, and he turned around and said to me, "Don't worry, Stu, they're not here to monitor you. They're here to monitor the course." And so I felt sort of relaxed and calm about it, and delivered the section of course that he wanted me to do, and loaded to find out actually they were assessing me. And I'm like, Tristan, you knew it. Yeah. But that was defining because I had to talk in front of personal trainers for the first time, and that was my first time doing it. Also the most defining moment is having the opportunity of coaching my first team at King's Rugby Club. That was very different to me because the culture of rugby in South Africa and the culture of rugby in the UK was so different. I quickly learned that people are enjoying their rugby here in a way that they finish work and they're here to play as a part-time, where in South Africa, everyone enjoys playing rugby. It's never a chore, So for me, that was a bit of a cultural shock. But mainly in strength conditioning, it's a case of having the coaches around me that have come and gone, the head coaches, the S&C coaches, the league coaches that were helping me out. They would impart some of their wisdom and knowledge. I would move on and they would move on, and we'd keep in contact. And I would have, those defining moments, those small bits and pieces I found much more interesting. Half of the stuff that I've learned as an S&C coach has come from a coffee shop. It doesn't sound so, wow, I kind of took the usual routes of life and went to uni, got a job, and moved my way up the ladder. And that's how the script was meant to go. But it ended up becoming short meetings, sharing ideas. For example, I was with the Arite for a while, and they were having the Lyceums, and we were networking as S&T coaches. And that was a great opportunity to meet other coaches and experience, networking with them and having to share some what I've been through and what they've been through. And I've walked away all the time going, I've just learned something new today, and it wasn't in a textbook. But that being said, they've also pushed me to places where you need to go and read this because you don't know that. I was like, what? And so, yeah, defining moments, I think they happen more often than not. Just when I sit down and when you count your blessings and name them one by one, and if I did it like that, I'd probably be filling your time with another 3 hours of chat, So
that every day for me is, there's a key moment that I think, oh right, yeah, that makes sense.
Light bulb.
Or
ding.
Yeah, I'll probably do that next time. Or most of them are based around, "Oh, Ryan, you idiot! What do you think? Why did you do that? What were you thinking?" But it's a key moment because it's something that sticks with you, and it helps you become better and develop.
Totally.
But they're really interesting answers, and I think just going back to that one about being assessed when you were tutoring. I think if Tristan had said, yeah, they're here to assess you, rather than, they're not here to assess you, they're just here to assess the course, I think your response and behaviour would be different.
100%.
The pressure put on you. So I think that's, even though it's a bit sneaky,
love the sneaky.
It's a great tactic, isn't it? Because that's sometimes what you need to do as a coach is not lie or bend the truth, but reshape the context in a way that's best for the outcome.
Yeah.
And that's a good case in point there.
I was being coached without even realizing it.
There we go.
Coach.
Doesn't happen.
What's the
so what would you say,
salesmen that get,
what would you say are currently your top areas of interest as a coach at the moment? What things are you spending more time reading about, doing, implementing into your training?
Well, at the moment, I'm because I'm having to do my research this year for my dissertation for St. Mary's. I've gone through many routes of reading about circadian rhythms, and because obviously rugby sevens, they're traveling around the world and so on. So it's an understanding of what they need to eat, sleep prior to training. I've been researching a lot about repeat sprintability. from Ernie Reimer, for example, where I love what he did there with the power endurance athletes when they're running 6 times 30 meter sprints. You can determine what sort of athlete you have in front of you. I think that for me has been really important, kind of researching that and researching the maximal speed, my maximum aerobic speed and maximum sprint speed, and then comparing that. And I found something quite interesting about the anaerobic speed reserve. So for me, it was like, wow, I found something. So first thing I did was get onto Tim, Gabbett. Is this worth anything? Should I continue reading? Does this apply in sevens? If not, then I'm going to ditch it. But you're a guy that knows the answer, so it will stop me wasting my time to get there. So I've been working, trying to find out what I'm going to research. So I've kind of gone along those routes. Love reading about constraint-based training. Love, looking at ideas about teaching games for understanding. That's like one of my favorite things, because to me, that's where athletes and S&C coaches, and that's like the halfway house between the gym and on the field training, where you can coach them. And I love coaching on the field. So I've kind of been exploring those areas and seeing what I can research, especially around sevens training, and see how we can identify the athletes that's in front of me. What would be most appropriate for them? Would it be speed, or are we just going to build an engine? So because at not all times do you have the time and the ability to spend time with them. So that's I think it's the top 5 interest areas.
Sure.
But yeah, at the moment, like if you ask anyone that's came into my studio for the last week, they know about maximal sprint speed, mass training, and anaerobic reserve. And I've explained it to them, and I've got technical, and I've drawn the graph on the board, and I'm like, look at the reserve. If you increase your reserve, the meters per second, you're going to run with less effort, But one thing I am still looking for is how to determine mechanical efficiency. So here it just gives me the meters per second, they get it done. But when it goes to mechanical efficiency, that's my next point of research, or trying to find or go down that road to compare it. Because, okay, so you run fast. Okay, so you do a good Bronco test. Great. So now how do I know you're running efficient? So, of course, I'm looking at wearable wear, trying to see what's out there, like I'm sure there is, but what is it? How do we attain that? Because if I can get someone running with more efficiency, faster, and he's fitter, he's more likely to be not only less injured, but, he's going to be almost gliding along the pitch. And there's always that one guy when you're watching rugby sevens, he looks like he's running effortlessly. And that's, whether that's something whether that's built over a long period of time, I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of my areas of interest.
That's great. No, thanks for sharing that. I've had a lot of success in the past. I don't know if we've discussed this before. When it comes to running efficiency of high-speed video analysis,
yes,
from an acceleration point of view, and also running between 30 and 40 meters at maximum pace, and filming from the side and the front, and breaking down all of the different kind of components. And I find that's quite useful. It's quite time consuming. But if you have a small squad, for instance, a squad of sevens players, it's definitely worth doing. It's definitely worth the time investment. It just becomes a bit more difficult when you've got a squad of 30 players and there's just one coach.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing with Jamaicans. We've been filming on the side, and doing the just 10-meter acceleration. I jumped onto Jonas's webinar, where he's got that model where every step now is calculated. You step further back and you film it, and you can gather more information. So I've been looking at that, and that's been quite helpful, helping the guys with front side mechanics, backside mechanics, first 3-4 steps in acceleration to help them understand. So I sent them out today on the app to do wicket training, where they're going through the wickets and trying to see more efficiency of the way they're running. So hopefully I get some feedback today that they've done that and they haven't scaved off. I'll be checking the Instagram. And from that find.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Whether how much rotation was taking place, but like you say, what is efficiency when they're running? Because they can make it look good, and yet when they can do the constraint, they can go through the wickets and the spacings, no problem. They can give you technical acceleration from the start, but then can they do it from a rolling start? Are they doing that on the field when no one's looking, the cameras are off? How do we measure that? You know what I mean? I know they've got GPS and we can record acceleration, all that, but it's just something interesting there that I'm looking to go down and explore. Only because if I can stop people from being rehabbed, then surely I must be doing my job.
If you can get people to run fast and use less energy and run faster more often without getting injured, great. I mean, that's the gold standard, isn't it? And I think there's so many different pieces to that puzzle in so many different sports. But
massively.
Particularly in sevens, that you're spending a very high amount of your time running pretty damn quick. Whereas, union game, as we all know, is a little bit different. So, yeah, that's really interesting, Stu. Let me know how you get on with that, because I think sevens is probably going to be the first type of rugby that my guys are going to be playing next. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's going to be much of a union happening this year, which is sad. But
there's no union. There's no union now that there's just the Premiership and the Championship. Half of them are going part-time. So, it's going to be part-time athletes and then suddenly Premiership. So even 15s and out, it does make me worry about, how sevens is stealing other sports athletes from track and field, and can I say basketball? And we have a football player in the squad, and they can see space. They move in different ways that rugby players wouldn't be expecting him to step, and therefore, that's it's only 7 minutes in the game of ball play. So what is it, 10 plays, and then 2 tries each team, and hopefully someone gets a third try, and that's generally the winning team. It's that quick, that fast. I do find watching when we competed again in Chester 2019, we were watching all the other teams and looking at the USA and how they had, wrestler, sprinter, and I looked at the Jamaican and I was like, yep, we have your track and field, we come from different, you're bobsleigh, you know what I mean? It's like, consider, from the captain's own words and not my own words from Uruguay after we competed, was we're the best Sunday league team in the world, which for me was brilliant because it really identified the mix mash of different sports coming to seven. So it does worry me how rugby union is going to cope with the popularity of an Olympic sport like sevens. And let's face it, Hong Kong is packed. It's filled with people having a good time, and even people that are older now are enjoying that sort of time of sport now as well. So it's really fascinating.
It's so entertaining. I took my American wife to watch London Sevens last year, and she's used to NFL, NBA, so she's used to LA Lakers. She's used to watching Rams, massive games, massive stadiums. She couldn't quite believe the atmosphere at Twickenham. She was shocked. She said it's just like nothing she's been to. But that's what I do love about the World Series. It's such a cool tournament, and everyone seems to have so much fun. And at being an athlete,
even the players off the pitch, walking around with their budgie smugglers, catching a tan with sunglasses, getting signatures. They love it too. It's just doesn't. Is this legal?
It's a really unique sport, and I love it. And everyone I speak to even if they're not really a rugby fan, loves it as well. So
Yeah.
to be involved in it must be exciting and must be fun. And also, you've just achieved my life goal, by the way, as an S&C coach, is to work with someone from the Jamaican bobsleigh team.
Oh, mate. Well, yeah. Jude is his name. Bobsleigh was his experience. At first, I thought it was a joke, Funny enough, on one of the courses, I forget his name now, but he was also Jamaican, and he also represented the UK or GB team, or was training to be a GB or whichever. And he was training for bobsleigh. I thought, again, you must be joking. But yeah, the straight line speed was brilliant. And that's one thing I noticed across the team as well of Jamaican players, is that they are linearly very fast. They'll beat a lot of people on the outside. There's no guarantee on that. One thing I brought into the team in the last few years is just creating a bit of an energy system. We started doing a bit of tempo running. We manipulated the tempo runs, so the work to rest ratio, 1 to 1/2. We kind of worked with that. We worked on short shuffle runs, and manipulating where we know that the guys were lacking. And the results from that, just from creating the tempo run, say, for example, we did like a 10 times 100 meters. We'd say, right, we need you guys to get there in 16 seconds. Now that's, for a lot of people, that's like, oh man, that I'm going to have to sprint 100%. For them, it wasn't 100%. That was okay. And I noticed quite quickly how that changed their way of training. And then lately I've been bringing in, okay, now we're going to go through change of direction. We're really going to be good, because the last thing they're going to expect is you to step and then sprint. Some are talented, don't get me wrong, like they can do it already, but as a whole, for the next generation coming through, the under 23s that are sort of help out, there's a few guys there, it's about those guys learning it now. So when they come through, it's not just, oh, I'm quick on the outside. No, I can step you on the inside and I'm quick. And apparently Warren Weir, I haven't been involved with, but Warren Weir, the 200-meter Olympic athlete, apparently he might be coming back to Jamaican Sevens. So, the dream is to get Usain Bolt, really, just from a publicity, sponsorship program, just so I can get some.
Play at least one game and score one try.
Game.
You just come back, score one try, and then retire.
Just like, Colin Niles, just come on like 2 times in the game on the outside, just hold the guy, let the other guy do the work. He's
tied up to soccer contract, isn't he? In Australia,
yeah,
Usain Bolt, isn't he? Or he was.
There was a lot of talk about that, and then you see him showing a picture of him scoring a goal, and I'm like,
well.
Really? Did you really score a goal in training, or did they just let you score a goal, take the cameras, and they can leave?
You're saying, if you're listening, can you come and start playing sevens so you can represent?
Amen.
Just score one try, and then you can retire. Everyone
Bang.
pay good money to see that.
Because sponsor deal, the stash that I'll get, Ryan, incredible.
Love it. That's awesome. And just coming back to something you mentioned previously just now is the transfer of track athletes to sevens. One thing that I've had really good success with in the last couple of years is track athletes who play sevens, obviously very useful on the rugby pitch in a straight line, but not so much when it comes to direction change or deceleration. But what we have started doing is we're getting quite a lot of our union players to do athletics in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So particularly the backs to do the sprint events and relays and maybe a jump of some description. And then the forwards to do more throw-based work. And then more towards the back row of the pack, maybe consider doing some kind of middle to lower distance race. And we found that just them spending like a season in the summer, like after the kind of rugby seasons died down, as pre-season starts to kind of lurk around the corner, having a few months of athletics and going through what are the mechanics involved in those different events. When it comes back to the rugby season, it makes so much difference to their athleticism and their efficiency. And
Totally.
I think it's probably more effective for those who've not done a lot in the past. But even for those multi-athletes, the superstars that can do it all, it still helps. So I think it's definitely worth considering in any type of rugby training, whether it's for union or for sevens, or some form of track-based sprint acceleration, high-speed running drills, and or kind of jump mechanics. It just helps so much. And if you think about it, there's so many movements which are interrelated.
Totally.
So yeah.
One thing I noticed also is that, how, because most of them come from some sort of track background, is that running arcs, running weaves.
Yeah.
That's like comprehending that movement is what we do in training. So, whereas rugby players know how to weave, they just do it instinctively, and they, whereas when they come from track, I get them to weave, and we try and minimize the tempos on just straight line running. Then we increase it and so on, and then that builds up step, and the rolling starts to acceleration. That I noticed was a big change. Another insight in something that I learned during this lockdown, something from Sam Portland, was obviously a sprint coach, sub-maximal sprint training, running 10 meters.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
As slow and as efficient as possible. And I found that, and I experimented that with the guys as well. And I found that was quite helpful. Because it made them realize that they've got to think of where every arm was and every foot placing and how much time they're spending on the ground. And, so he added metrics to it, but I just kind of kept it simple for that. But it just to me showed like transferring rugby players to athletes to the track, and then track to rugby. It's like, if there was a way that, but then yet again in sevens, there are two positions. There are wingers and everyone else. So you get the ball, and I just want you to run a straight line. So thank you very much. Score the try. Great. 1 or 2 steps, you should be gone. If you're somewhere in the middle, I expect some good lateral movements as well as speed. Like you can understand, like the Carl Owls, the Dan Nortons, they're on the outside. They deliver that straight line speed, and they're really efficient. And maybe rugby 7 should start looking at different body positions and skills and so on, where we normally go forwards and backs. But I think in sevens, there's certainly like outside, sort of in the middle, and in the middle, and
yeah, that makes sense. I think there's so much information you can get by watching people play at the highest level, especially in terms of stats, numbers, speeds, distances. It's quite incredible, like how much work gets done in such a short amount of time, and what numbers are hit as well. So what would you say, Stu, what are your kind of top sports performance exercises or drills that you'd use on with a typical player? So for the sake of ease, could you give us an example of maybe a strength drill, a power drill, and a speed drill that you would use consistently with the Jamaica guys?
That's a good question. I like that. For me, the acceleration drill is got to be up there. So, in terms of movements, I will do the classic wall drill. I will do the classic reload pattern. I will do the velocity wall drills where they're standing to the side of the wall. I will do those basics, because what that tells me is things that I will not see if they were under a weight, and compensation that might occur, or timing issue that when they're doing it, and something that we can work on. I love a counter movement jump, barbell jump, adding some weight onto that, measuring that. Call me geeky. Love that stuff, but also I can get some data from that as well. So, I like doing a 25 kilogram, barbell jump, 25, and then I might go like 35, 50, and then stop there, because I do understand that these are speed athletes. They, I don't want to put too much load on. I'm not a fan of like heavy loads on the sevens. But there's a time and a place for a certain season, of course, because of the time we spend. Power drill as well, medicine ball throws. For me, it's like, that is one of the ones that anything around the medicine ball and power, I get a lot more out of them. I use a lot of bands on the drills. Even if it's a broad jump with bands, just getting them to do the bits and pieces that we're going to train on, that will be effective for the very next thing that we're going to do. So if it is a broad jump, let's say that with a band, then you can be guaranteed to be doing acceleration in about 5 exercises time. So they're all like intersync with each other. Because I also understand that although it's a favorite exercise of mine, I love a good deadlift. I think deadlifts are, for me, the go-to. It tells me a lot about the athlete, the age of the athlete, the training age. It tells me whether you've been coached by another coach or not, perhaps the level of the other coach as well. So it tells me your timing. One of the funny things is I always tend to do is, even if I've got General Pop coming in, and I've been training Stu for 5 years, I know all the exercises, and then I go, great, could you just show me a bent over row in a deadlift, position? So they, stand in, doing a RDL sort of movement, hold the bottom position and do a row. And straight away, I'll know whether they've been coached like they've said, because there I will find out whether you can do a hinge. I'll find out pretty quickly that, can you retract your shoulder blades when you row? In fact, can you do both of them at the same time, because you've been training for 5 years? So then when I get that sort of information from an athlete, it tells me whether the posterior chain is good enough. It tells me a lot about them. It tells me, who am I dealing with, what they consider a success in movement. I think hinge, hamstring, change of direction, velocity drills, acceleration, like my favorite one is like doing a hamstring. Some people call it bridge, some call it hamstring. A hip raiser, where you do it on a single leg and you get the same angle as a running pattern. So your heel's on the ground, your other leg's off the ground, in a running stance position, and you're at the same angle as velocity would be if your foot were to place the ground. And I find that be the most truthful telling capacity test of an athlete for me, because, you're a runner, we run. So how good are you running? Are you able to stop with those hamstrings, or are we going to be having issues? Can you fly at speed, or is that what's really holding you back? So for me, those are my go-to, and anyone that's done a session with me would be like, oh, yep, that's Stu. So Stu, are we going to do some bicep curls? I'm going to do some squats. Yeah, we will do a pistol squat. Oh, no, we'll do the deadlift. Oh, right, okay. Sure. So
it's funny how every rugby player, no matter how old they are, will always try and put bicep curls into their routine at some point. It's just something that I've always noticed, and I've always done myself. But no matter who you play for, where you play, you say don't do them, so they're just going to sneak off and do them anyway. So that's an essential part of any rugby player's program, isn't it?
And especially in sevens, because it's not just about the rugby, is it?
Exactly.
You take your top off, you're walking around the pitch. Like now, it is about your bicep curls and your chest and how defined you're looking.
You've got to mingle with the crowd, haven't you?
Exactly, and fan base.
I love it. So, just coming to the last few questions, mate. What would you say the biggest injuries are that you see regularly from sevens players at the highest level?
The injuries,
Yeah.
for me, it's always the lower limbs.
Yeah.
It's, call it 60, 70%. Tendons and muscles around that area at the same sort of percentage. It's always going to be that and that, you know. So it's going to be lower limbs for me. It's going to be, tendons and joints, ligaments. You know, it's always seems to be around the dead leg, around the hamstring, around my knee, around my ankle. You know, those are the common traits, you know, that I find because of the way the sport is and how quick they move, and as well as different positions they get themselves into when they go into rucks, for example. And then the rest of that percentage, we call it 60, 70%, the rest is sort of tailored in between sort of neck, torso, and shoulders. And that's just going to be purely from collision. And that collision base is something you just cannot prepare for. Perhaps you could have prepared for them for making them faster and fitter. So when they arrive at their destination, they have, one, enough time. Two, they have enough time to be efficient in their activity. So normally they can be fast and just be falling over at the 40-meter mark, or they can be fast and ready to be executing a drill or a ruck or a tackle. And normally it's not always the guy that gets there first, but it's the guy that gets there first and that's more alert, that's more able to move his shoulders or hips in any direction, and is more balanced as an athlete at that point in time. So when I look at that sort of injury, I wondered to myself, is that something I could have prevented? Is that athlete just running to the next ruck and just slamming in and not actually being efficient, that he got there, he's decelerated really quickly, and he's ready to perform his duty in the ruck or whatever it may be. So that to me is as an injury, and it's always going to be groin because it's a lateral movement. Ankles, because not every pitch in the country is flat, and it's, we had a terrible experience in Uruguay that it was a 4G pitch on a hot summer's day, just tearing skin off. Yeah. So that was another experience. You asking, you had that?
Yeah, like when we went on tour in Japan 2 years ago, it was awful. Yeah, it was just like playing on sandpaper every day. Yeah,
totally. And to me, that really bugged, the way things were.
I'm going to ask you one more question, mate, and then let you go, because I massively overrun here.
I love talking about it.
I don't want to hold you up. No, it's been a great chat. I've got another appointment soon, so I need to
no worries.
Be efficient with time. But what would you say that if you take sevens and compare it against Union, how many? So you take the World Series, the HSB series. Is it still called that now? Is there one to it? So if you take that HSBC series, World Series, how many games of sevens would an average team play per weekend?
Per weekend? Oh, that depends if you go to the final. Right. So if you don't go to the
maximum amount of games that you
6.
Play.
You're gonna play 6 games. You're gonna be playing 3 games.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
A pool to 4 games in a pool, depending on how much they are. And then when you're on the day 2, you could have 2 to 3 games, depending if you're in the bronze final, the silver final, and the actual final. And of course, the variety of the intensity of the sessions of each of the games will be different. So everyone assumes like the first game is never intense. It's actually the first game is actually the most intense, because that's where you're putting everything on the line and you want to start well. One thing that I found that really helped the guys is actually a breathing technique at halftime. because everyone talks so much after sevens, very emotional after playing 7 minutes. Mate, where were you? You were open. Why didn't you know? So all these sort of talks, and so we created a culture of everyone come in. There's 2 minutes in the rest in sevens. There's 3 breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. We do that 3 times. Then we have the coach talk, and then we have the captain talk, and we're back on the field. So we keep it that simple because people are just catching their breath and arguing. Sometimes it can be. You don't need that right now. Your energy is in the wrong place. Your mind is in the wrong place. And we noticed that the worst thing to do after sprinting is standing still. You want to walk around. So we put that into a bit of a culture, and the games get more intense. The running per meters get more as you get more tired. It's been more required, and more gaming play is taking place. So the average play might be 30 seconds, and as you get up higher, they're retaining the ball for longer. You could be going for 2 minutes. So for me, it's always about planning for the worst. So can we stand 2 minutes if we were suddenly thrown into the ring with the likes of Japan and Germany, which we were? I think that to me, the structure of the games is quite a lot. It's a huge intensity. The day afterwards, the rehab part of sevens, and thank goodness for game is I forget now, breaker, where you've got the rehab sleeves you put your legs in, and
the Normatec sleeves. And the game ready as well.
Yeah, the game ready. Sorry, my bad.
Well, this is going to be the next question, Stu. So if you take a typical 80-minute game of union, which is usually every week, unless you've got a cup game middle of the week, versus how many games did you say? 6+ games of sevens on the weekend or more?
What for?
In a World Series tournament?
Yes.
Yeah. What's the biggest differences between, in terms of recovery, between an 80-minute game of union every week compared to a weekend playing of sevens at the highest level?
Yeah, good point. If you're comparing the two, I think not only the running per meters is quicker, but I think the collisions are faster. I think the rate of play, the covering of distance is greater at a greater speed compared to union, where a game is only 35 minutes of ball in play, and it can happen on the other side of the field, and the work to ratio can be like 1 to, for a winger, for example, in 15 it could be 1 in 5 minutes, I'd say, almost, because he probably might not get the ball, and when he does, he's only running 10 meters, hits contact, falls to the ground, passes, and goes on again. So I think in sevens is because the amount of gaps and the space involved. I think for me, it's watching the game and seeing and comparing the two. It's the intent in which they play, and I think there's less physical pushing, so there's more time being wasted. So like in 15s, there's a case of rolling mauls, you got to play the line out. Once you put all those parameters in, it's in terms of backline players, they're doing a lot less work compared to, say, the forwards, which is 15s is predominantly a forwards game. Yeah. It is controlled by the forwards for the forwards. Oh, by the way, backs, you can have a go. Whereas sevens is, you've got to be covering distance, speed, and be physically prepped and mentally alert. And also what I find really interesting in sevens is there's been many times that there's been an open pass to the right. There's 100% chance of a try being scored, but that particular player cannot pass right because of the skill component, because they can sometimes in 15s do a shorter pass. Now you're asking players that there's a 20-meter pass to be made to the right, and they don't have the technical skills to do so. So sometimes it's disappointing to see because the game could get faster and more tries can be scored. And compared to other sports like basketball, there's a lot less knock-ons in basketball as in rugby sevens. And I know the ball is different, but it just shows and highlights the skill component of sevens has got to be higher, where you can just sort of pop a ball to a 15s and run straight. So
yeah, well, that's why I was always a forward, mate. I just never had the skills to be back.
I was always a fly half, winger, centre, played fullback, and currently I can say I'm a veterans grasshopper, fullback, winger still at the moment. Which the culture of being a winger in England means you don't get the ball.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You just stand there and look pretty, but you don't get in the ball because you're gonna drop it. And it's like, come on, man. When we play back home in South Africa, if you're a winger, it means I'm going to get the ball.
It's funny. It's funny how there's just those slight cultural, I suppose, jokes that go around about different positions in different countries, isn't there?
Totally.
Never gets old. Love it.
I was like, yes, I'm wing. Until I realised that's not a good thing. Or centres. You've got this open, he's about to pass to you. He's like, no, I'm just going to keep it.
Yeah.
I was like, right, okay, I get it now. Sorry, my bad.
I got put as a flanker at like 12 years old because I could tackle quite well and I was reasonably quick. But that never changed. And it was, I was probably too small to play flanker, to be honest. And it probably caused me a lot of injuries. A lot of much bigger people running into me for 15 years. But I loved it. I wouldn't change it, even though that I'm probably a bit extra stiff and sore now from it. And my nose and finger is not quite as straight as it used to be. But it's one of the sports, it's such a great sport, rugby, whether it's union or sevens. And I think
totally,
it's got one of the best cultures I've ever been involved with, and it's like everyone just is in it for the love of the game, and it's so exciting to watch. And I think both union and sevens have got so many positives about them that they're both rugby, but they're also both very entertaining for different reasons. So it's really interesting to talk to you about them in so much detail. And
the world of mental health, what a great place to be if there's 30 other guys around you. The worst place for mental health is to be on your own, at least be around a community. And so if rugby is a community, well, then that's halfway through there. You know what I mean? So I think that's an important thing as well.
Well, Stu, thanks for coming on the show, mate. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Ryan.
Sorry I've gone over a bit on time.
No. If
people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way they can do that?
You know what? The world of Instagram, you've got to follow the young. So, tribe_perform. Of course, tribeperformance.co.uk. Kind of got that name because obviously the heritage and all the rest, but tribe also just means for me the different components of humanity. So I thought that was kind of fitting, and only to realize that everyone's got the word tribe on their logos. So, but that's all right, So, tribe_perform. And you know what? I love engaging with people that ask questions. And if I don't know the answer and people want to ask more questions, by all means, so yeah.
Great stuff.
Thanks so much, Ryan.
Well, mate, I might see you wandering down the road in the next couple of days.
Let's grab a coffee.
See you outside Steam and Grind, or Grind and Steam. And
that's it.
From a social distance.
That's it.
Nice one. Okay, mate. Well, I'll let you go. Thanks again, bud. And
thanks so much, Ryan. That's awesome, man. Cool.
Thanks for listening to the 28th episode. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please leave us a rating and/or review on whichever platform you're listening on. Please check out our website, www.extremesportsperformance.com. On our media page, we have weekly blogs that include Thought of the Week, Exercise of the Week, Recipe of the Week, and Training Song of the Week. Each month's collection gets compiled into our monthly newsletter along with company service and store updates. You can sign up for free to receive this via our subscribe page. Our online store consists of training programs, online and in-person coaching, nutrition plans, toolbox, and interactive training systems. Please follow us on our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Links to these can be found at the bottom of every page on our website or via any search engine. That's all for now. Until next time, take care.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.